Hi everyone, this is Miran, the head of marketing at Barbara. We're just going to give a couple of minutes because we are having people joining in. We have already 37 people, so if you are with me, we're just going to be like 1 minute more before we start this webinar. Thank you. So we already 54, 55. It's just, yeah, numbers are coming in. So very good news. Very happy that people are joining to this event. We have over 200 registries, so registrants, and hopefully will be more. Yeah, I can see people joining us. We start in a couple of minutes. Okay, well, it's 5:02 p.m. here in Madrid. I want to welcome everyone to our Talk to the Expert series. Today, we are very excited to host Inductive Automation as our special guest for a deep dive into its orchestration with a focus on orchestrating ignition at the edge using the Barbara platform. I'm Miren Zabaleta, Head of Marketing at Barbara, and I'm joined by Travis Cox, Chief Technology Evangelist at Inductive Automation, and Alex Cantos, our VP of Product at Barbara. Before we begin, a quick note about how today's session will run. We want this session to be as dynamic, as interactive as possible. So please use the chat to drop your questions at any time. We will collect them throughout the session and answer them at the Q&A at the end. After the webinar, we will ask you to complete a short questionnaire to help us keep improving these webinars. And of course, we will be sharing the recording and the slides with you afterwards. That's all from my side. Alex and Travis, if you'd like to introduce yourself, the floor is yours. Thank you.
That's all right. Thank you, Miren, for the short introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. It's afternoon for me here in Madrid. I'm Alex, I'm the VP of Product here at Barbara, and I like to think of myself as the voice of the user in Barbara, the voice of people like you, people who are trying to improve their business and might be having a hard time because, yeah, improving business is hard, digitalizing is hard, and that's why we are building a platform that helps industries to cover their digitalization journey in an easy way, or at least as easy as possible. And because we can do that alone, we're always in the lookout for partners, and we have the immense luck of being a partnership with the guys at Inductive Automation, which have a beautiful piece of software that we all know and love. And that's really helping people out there to digitalize and to become better companies, really. So today, in collaboration with them, we're going to show how we can go a step further, how we can go from just installing ignition to orchestrating ignition, how to take control of our infrastructure, which we think is key to scale our business intelligently. And that's all from my side, I think, for the moment. Over to you, Travis.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Thank you, Miren. I'm so happy to be here. So my name is Travis Cox. I'm the Chief Technology Evangelist at Inductive Automation. I've been with the company going on 22 years. So I've been there from the very beginning. And over that journey, most of my career has been to help our customers and our partners understand what the kind of the art of the possible is, how to put together architectures, how to integrate different solutions, and ultimately to solve different pain points that are out there. And we're going to share a lot about this journey here, but we're in an interesting time, with Industry 4.0, and there's a lot going on with that, and the scale of systems are just getting larger. So it's really fun to be able to start looking at these tools that really can empower our teams to scale smarter and to ultimately solve a lot of challenges that we're faced with here today. So I think what I'm going to do first is kind of set the stage. I want to introduce Inductive Automation and Ignition for those of you here in the audience that may not be familiar. But then I want to kind of set the stage in terms of just where we are in this time that I was kind of mentioning here. So first and foremost, if you're not familiar with inductive automation, here are a few facts about us. We are a software company. We don't do any implementation or we don't do any hardware. We just focus on the Ignition software platform. And that is used by 65% of Fortune 100, which means being used inside of some of the world's largest companies. And we have over 5,000 integrators in our program worldwide. Now, it says 4,000 here, but that we just crossed the 5,000 mark. And this is a really key part of the strategy in that these integrators are the ones, they're the boots in the ground. They're putting these solutions in place and they're working with end users to help, ultimately help solve these OT challenges. We have a very diversified customer base across all industries with thousands of installations in over 140 countries. And we've been in the industry for 22 years. And we have about 350 employees in the US and in Australia. So that's a little about us. Our product, Ignition, is a universal industrial application platform, and it's there for HMI, SCADA, MES, IIoT, and much more. It acts as a central hub for everything on the plant floor and beyond. You can build any kind of industrial application with it. So while HMI and SCADA is a staple of Ignition, you can go way beyond that and really building any kind of application that you want, and ultimately get that data to anybody who wants that. So it's deployable to desktops, to industrial displays, phones and tablets, smart TVs, you name it. You can get that application out there. And its licensing model is unlimited, which allows you to have as many tags, screens, clients, device connections, projects, you name it. Once you put a server license in place, you can scale that as much as you want going forward. It is completely cross-platform. We can deploy Ignition to really anywhere, which we're going to be showing how to really deploy Ignition here today in a very automated way. And it offers industrial strength and security and stability. So that's a little about the product here. But let's kind of set the stage in terms of what a lot of people have been doing with Ignition from the very beginning. And George's a typical SCADA architecture. For the longest time, architectures on the OT side haven't really changed. We put a centralized server in place to communicate to all the plant floor devices and PLCs. We bring that data in, and then we can log that to an historian or to a SQL database, to ultimately see that data over time and get that information to people on their desktops or smart TVs or phones and tablets. And so this architecture historically it's been very simple. And I say small in that the footprint, the hardware footprint we needed to make this happen from a software standpoint was pretty low. But redundancy, of course, was critical in this architecture. You had to have resilient architecture where if one of the machines failed, that we had a backup we can take over. But all the data typically stayed in OT, and systems were managed by the OT teams. And we typically use physical servers or virtualization. So this is how it's kind of gone for a long time. But here comes this thing called Industry 4.0, right? And we're all talking about digital transformation every day, and that's just because data is king and data is critical to the business and to decision making. And what we're really seeing is an unprecedented increase in data. And there has historically been a lot of data that has been in siloed systems or not accessible, stranded out there in the systems. And it's now time to bring that data in and to take advantage of that data. And it's not just a small subset. We want all the data that's out there. And not only that, we're also purchasing new smart sensors and new devices that are adding a lot more data to our overall infrastructure. So data is important, and there's just much easier today, especially with IoT and all the sensors, it's much easier to take advantage of that. But of course, with that, there comes challenges, right? When there's a lot of data that's increasing. We're also seeing, of course, AI entering the OT space at a rapid pace, meaning that people want to take advantage of all the benefits of AI by having things like predictive maintenance or forecasting or creating an operator chatbot. There's a lot of different opportunities that are out there, and we want to use that. So that means that fundamentally our architectures are changing. What was simple before there's more and more tools and requirements that are causing the architectures to look different, and where the worlds of OT and IT are having to come together. Those worlds are blending together. And that just also means complexity is increasing. So it's really important to have the right platforms and the right tools in place, and to leverage open standards that are out there today to make this happen. And so that's really, we're going to kind of focus on having the right tools here today in order to really accomplish this scale. So when we look at the architecture, evolution, edge has entered the scene in a big way, meaning that we're putting edge compute devices near our sources of data. So in a lot of systems, that's near the PLCs, where we want to do remote data collection, to have stored and forward, bring that up to a centralized system where we don't lose in that information. We want to have local HMIs. We want to more or less decouple our devices from our applications so we can provide data to an infrastructure. A lot of people are kind of thinking of UNS, or unified namespace, today. And so that architecture is evolving quite a bit. And there's more and more devices that are being put on the plant floor. And that means there's more systems that we have to manage and more systems that we have to patch. And of course, IT wants to have more involvement with this, right? Historically, OT has been off limits. They've operated in these different environments, but now the technologies are blending, where we can take advantage of IT and OT, and we can leverage their expertise and leverage tools that they've been used to for a long time. But of course, one of the major considerations with all of this is just simply cost, and with that complexity, and redundancy has always been important. So how can we attack a system where we're adding a lot of edge compute devices, but do that in a cost-effective way? So these are some of the important questions that people are asking, right? How do I deploy these modern services to OT quickly? Things like AI and deploying Ignition and various tools out there. How do I manage more of these compute devices? If I had two servers out there, two edge compute devices, it might not be that big deal. But if I have hundreds or thousands, how do I manage that? How do I add redundancy in a cost-effective way? How do I patch all of my systems to keep them up to date? And how do we really get OT and IT to work together? So what I wanted to kind of set the scene is, I think that containerization, orchestration are going to play a huge or key role in OT architectures going forward. There's a bit of a technological revolution happening right now with this. When we typically would deploy Ignition, we would install it on a bare metal server, or we install it in a virtual environment, but we're installing it. Now we're leveraging containers. So Ignition has a container image. It's available on Docker Hub. Simple to use. There's lots of configuration options, but ultimately we're encapsulating that Ignition service as this portable container that we can move around and push to any device that we want to run that on. And there's a lot more options for how we can deploy containers, and it's a lot simpler for how we look at it. Now, when we look at this, there's these benefits are things like portability, there's isolation, there's resource efficiency, there's scalability. We get faster deployment and development, easier to upgrade, better security with all this, and there's a large ecosystem on the IT side to help support these efforts. And so we can easily deploy Ignition or Ignition Edge using as a container. Of course, that means, though, if we're going to deploy it, we can certainly deploy one or two, but what if we want to deploy hundreds or thousands, right? Orchestration is the key to doing that. Orchestration is basically how we automate the task of deploying these Ignition containers to these edge compute devices, and we do it in a smart way, right? That allows for scalability, allows for things like resilience and high availability, where we can do it cost effectively and have consistency, and enhance security. All these benefits are there with these tools. And what I'm really excited is that we're going to show these tools off here today. So I'm going to hand this over to Alex, because at this point, I think we got the scene set. It's really important now to understand how to leverage these tools that exist, that are here today, to help us do our job better. And Alex, over to you to demonstrate that.
Thank you, Travis. Let me share my screen. Hopefully you see my screen. Yeah, definitely orchestration is the solution to many of the problems that the industry is going to find as soon as they start growing and scaling up their digital solutions. Orchestration is going to allow them to scale smarter, but also to be resilient, and it will also allow them to move on to AI faster, which is something that we are seeing more and more these days. So yeah, let's take a look at this Barbara plus Ignition bundle. Let's deploy an Ignition instance using Barbara. So this is what I'm going to do. We have a node running Barbara Core, which is this box here. This node can be a physical device or a virtual machine. We cover many brands and makes and sizes and whatnot, but in the example, it's going to be an industrial PC that we have in our laboratory. And Barbara Core, which is running on top of the hardware, is going to provide us with many things, but one of them, probably the most important, is an orchestrator with persistence, right? That's why you have there the Docker icon and this folder icon here, right? And the idea is that we're going to orchestrate that ignition by using the orchestrator, but also we're going to provide ignition with some persistence on volume. So as we'll see, all the data can be saved between versions upgrades, but also between ignition instances floating around in clusters, as we'll speak about in a minute. But the idea is that in this first demo, we're going to be deploying version 8.3.0, which is a slightly outdated version of Ignition, using Barbara Core, deploying it over Barbara Core, using Barbara Panel, which is basically our centralized management interface. After that, we're going to load the project, just a very simple project, and then we will update the instance. So we're going to install a new instance, a new version of the instance, which is going to be the 8.3.1, happens to be the latest, and then we'll see that the project is still there, right? And we also see that's a very fast process, and it's a very easy process to perform, right? In comparison to just getting an SSH or a VPN or going to the field and doing things manually. It would take us 30 seconds in comparison to, I don't know, hours that it could take to come to terms with the IT guys or go to the field or I don't know, whatever it needs to update it when you don't have an orchestration platform. So yeah, that's enough talking. Let's go to the platform. So this is Barbara Panel. This is my demo account. It's just an account that we use to demonstrate the product to customers and whatnot. From here, I can manage remotely all these nodes, all these devices. And I'm going to use this node over here. In this case, it is an Advantech node. I think it's an i5 or an i7. It's the EPC 301. It's just a physical device that we have in the lab. And this device happens to be available on the IP, on this IP here, which is local IP, which is accessible to me. If the device wasn't on my network, I could easily access it through the VPN. So the VPN is a service that Barbara provides and then ensures that you can always reach your devices, your nodes. But the most important things happen here in the Apps and Model tab. So if we go here, we can see that there's no application deployed at the moment. So let's start deploying. So we're going to click on Add. We're going to click on Application to add an application. And we're going to search for Ignition. You can see there's two Ignitions, there's two flavors of Ignition. We're going to be playing around with the Ignition, the standalone Ignition version. Although we could use redundancy if we were going for more of a production redundant ready sort of deployment. But for the moment, for this demo, to keep it simple, we'll just use the regular version. So Ignition, I'm going to choose the slightly older version, the 8.3.0, because what I want to do is then update it to the latest. And I'm going to click on Next. Now, there's many things that you could configure here. You could change the user, you could change the password, you could even provide your license key, your Ignition license key. So you could start using your licensed Ignition right away. You know that Ignition offers a 2-hour trial, which is great to kickstart your projects and start playing around with the product. That's what you'll get when you install this out of the box, but you could add your license here to very easily enjoy the full version of Ignition. Then there's other things that you could be tweaking around, such as specifying volume, specifying ports. I won't touch anything, just skip and send and deploy straight away. And this is going to deploy the application. Right, let me refresh, go back, there you go. All right, so you can see here the card of the application, ignition installed, version 830. Down here you can see the logs. So this is what the container is sending. The platform is dimensioned to be able to process, I don't know how many millions of logs per second. It's just a cumbersome amount of them, but this is quite valuable for people deploying in the edge. And if I want to access the ignition, I will only have to go to the IP that I just said. I will open a new tab and go to the port where I know ignition is being served. Now it's loading, and there we go. I'm sure that you're familiar with this, and if you're not, this is ignition's home. So from here, we could just log in. Log in. There you go. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to load a project, a backup project that I have around. So let's just restore. Let's choose the file. You'll see it's a very simple file. It's a very simple project. Just click on restore. There you go. It has been restored. And now the ignition is gonna restart. It's gonna reload that project. While it reloads, let me open the designer. So let me look for the designer, which is a tool that Ignition uses to basically create your application dashboards and whatnot that then you push onto the Ignition that's running in the edge. So there you go. You can see that it has reloaded the project. So now when I go into the Ignition, which I know it's in the 112, you know, it's the same IP here. I'm going to find that project. You're going to see it's a very simple project. I just wanted to show you that when I update, then the project is maintained, because that's an interesting thing that you have that allows you to just upgrade in below a minute from a version to the next. So let me specify this right. There we go. And this is the test project. Let's open it. It's loading. And should be ready straight away. We have some minor issues here. There we have. So as you can see, I have this very simple dashboard with 4 tags. It's just for the sake of the demo. But the idea is that I'm going to update the Ignition, and you're going to see that the same project is going to be maintained. So let's go back to the platform. Let's go back to the Ignition. And if you look here, there's a tiny bubble that says update available. So it's saying, hey, there's a new version available. You might want to pump up your version to the latest. So yes, let's update our version. It's already chosen for you. We could change things around if we wanted to. Spoiler, we don't. We just click on send. And this is going to install the new version. It's already happening here. You can see the logs if you wanted to. I don't know how much you see because I see all these zoom thingies down here. Don't know if you see all that or not, but we get some feedback from Ignition. This sometimes takes a while, but it's behaving quite well today, so it's a good news. All right, so it's already there. If we go to the designer, it's going to complain saying, hey, something happened. I lost track of what I was looking into, obviously because the version, the previous Ignition went down and a new one went up. But if we reload, we will see that it won't have trouble finding that project again. So PBR user, password, and here we are, same project. If I open it, we should see the same 4 tags that we saw before. It's loading. Yeah, and while it loads, let me explain a little bit more about the marketplace and where I got the Ignition app. As Travis said, they do have their standard containers, their official containers. What we have done at Barbara is we have packaged those containers to run in our platform. So we have added some bits and pieces around it to make it easier to deploy and to have all the info and configuration and everything available through our interface and our API. So if you go to the marketplace, Barbara's marketplace, and you search for Ignition, you're going to see the 2 flavors that we have of Ignition. Sorry, that I searched before time. Ignition. All right, so there you go. So we have 2 flavors, the standard ignition and the redundancy ignition. If you click on any of them, you should be able to read a little bit about ignition, also go through the technical notes on how you can deploy ignition using Barbara, everything that's configurable and whatnot. And you could add it to your library. Because I already have it in my library, this is shown as grayed out. But once I have it in my library, I just go to, I can just go here and you will find it in your library. So in my case, I here have the 2 flavors of Ignition, which are marketplace applications, right? And that's why when I click on Add Application, I can choose Ignition from there because it's in my library. All right, so going back to the designer, there you go, it has loaded, and if we click on it, again, we have the same 4 dummy tags that we had before. So and it took about, I don't know, 30 seconds, 40 seconds to update. I mean, from the moment that we clicked on send to the moment that it became available again, it took about 30 seconds to a minute, right? So, so that's how long it takes to go from a version to the next one by using Barbara, right? If you compare that to the way in which you're doing it now, I'm sure that you're realizing how powerful this is. And the good news about this is that you don't have to take care of backups or restores. Everything is taken care of for you. So you just pump up the version and everything self-configures and your projects magically appear again in the new version. All right, so let's close it and go back to the slides for a moment. So just to summarize a little bit, why orchestration is key here to deploy and maintain Ignition at scales. As you can see, it was very fast to deploy, very fast to update, 0 friction. Also, the interface was very friendly. We have thought a lot in our interface. We know that our customers are OT people who don't like CLI or black screens or scripts or all that geeky stuff. So you don't need to open VPNs, you don't need SSH tunnels, you don't need VNCs, you just don't need anything but just the platform, right? And one of the powerful things of Barbara is that what you have seen here, the operations that you have seen here, performed over a node, over one device, could be done over as many devices as you want. So just to give you a hint, you just can go here, you can select as many devices as you want. You can go here and say, hey, I want to install Ignition in all these devices. So you just click on next and it says, are you sure you want to do this? Probably we shouldn't do this now, but just click on launch and you will be doing that in all those devices. So you could potentially update Ignition in thousands of devices in under a minute. So just think about how powerful that is. And how much money you will be saving in comparison to you're doing it now. Right, so going back to the slides, as I was saying, you could remotely do this from a single point. You could do it massively in bulk using batches across hundreds, thousands of devices. And last but not least, in a cyber-secure way. I mean, we take pride on ourselves for being probably the most cyber-secure platform out there when it comes to deploying workloads remotely. We comply with several standards, and yeah, we have designed the platform to be cybersecure by design. All right, so now what happens if, let's just move a little bit forward. What happens if the machine where my ignition is running crashes? Or what happens if I want to perform some software updates or on the operating system, for example? Or what if I just want my ignition to keep running no matter what happens? Well, that's where we developed high availability. And now what I'm going to do in this next demo is I'm going to be deploying ignition to a cluster. And a cluster is what you can see here. It's basically a combination of nodes or devices that are running Barbara core, and it's self-managed, meaning that we deploy the ignition to the cluster. So we're going to deploy it to the cluster, and the cluster is the one that will decide in which of the nodes it gets to run. But the nice thing about this is that it will always ensure that ignition is running somewhere. And this is, well, that's something very interesting, because we have the flexibility of having it always on, but as we'll see, we will also have the power of being able to access the workload, being able to access ignition in the same way, independently of where it's being run. And that's because there's two things that are great about Barbara's implementation of high availability. And those are shared volumes and floating virtual IP. And the shared volumes that you can see here are the same volumes that we had before, but in this case, they are shared across different nodes, different devices, right? And the data they contain is synchronized in real time. So that means that any node at any given time has the exact same data. So you can imagine that if this ignition floats away from this node onto this node, it comes very handy that this shared volume will have the same data that it was using when it was in the other node. But then you have the virtual IP, which is it's up here. And the virtual IP is an IP that's pointing always to the right place. So you will always reach your ignition, no matter where it actually is running. So if your ignition floats onto a different node because this node goes down or because you schedule some maintenance or whatever, the virtual IP is wise enough to know that your ignition is now running there, right? So you can access that ignition that's in a different place, always using the same IP. And that's very convenient. So what I'll be showing is how I will drain this node. So I will simulate a crash or command this node to empty all the workloads that are running on them, and we'll see how ignition floats onto a new node. And we'll also see how we could access it by using the same IP, same port, as if nothing had happened. And this is why high availability is so powerful. But stop the talking, let's start doing. So going back to the platform, here in clusters, I'm going to use this cluster, which I have conveniently named Ignition Cluster. The first thing I'm going to do, well, this is a cluster made up of 3 nodes. You have the 3 nodes here. Each of the nodes has their own IP. So 108, 111, 123, but I don't care. I don't care because they have a virtual IP over them, and that's the one I'm going to use always. So I don't care if these IPs, this partial, let's say, IPs. I have these 3 nodes, they are online, they're active, that's cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a volume, and I'm going to give it just a very thoughtful name, Ignition Data. There you go. And you can see it's not in use, so let's use it. Let's go to App, Add Application. Again, let's search for Ignition. We'll use Ignition Standalone, latest version, click on Next. I won't change anything here, but I will change the volume name here to the volume I have just created, because what I want is this ignition to use that shared volume. So when it floats between nodes, it will have the same information, the same data available underneath. So I will click on Next. Here's the place where I should I could play around with high availability. I could decide how many replicas I want. I could choose the way in which those replicas behave. The high availability functionality is just huge, but I will stick to a simple case, which is just one replica. Let's send it. As you can see, the process is very similar to the process that we followed for a node. So the user experience is quite similar in one and the other case. We have just sent it to the cluster. It has appeared a card, saying ignition, E011 has appeared here. We have some logs of what's happening down here. And let's check where is it actually installing it. All right, so we can see it's installing it in node 1. You can see that in this small bubble here. It is purple because it's a marketplace application, and the 1 means it's one application. So node number 2 and node number 3 are empty. Why did it choose that one? I don't know, and I don't care, because it's up to them to self-organize. I mean, the good thing is that it's going to be running, and I could access it through the virtual IP that's here. So let's try to access it to see what happens. So we're in the 200s, again same port, and here we can see that it's starting. So it may take a while. We'll give it some space. Meanwhile, let me speak a little bit about, I've spoken about Marketplace, let me speak a little bit about Academy, which is our knowledge base. So you could access Academy here. And everything that there is to know about Barbara is somewhere here. I was speaking about hardware before. Here we have a list of all the supported hardware. So you could see that we support many brands. If you click on one of these, I don't know, Avantech, for example, you could also see all the families that we support. So there's a lot of them. We also support virtual machines of the 3 most used types, VMware, KVM, Hyper-V. And we also support devices with GPUs, including NVIDIA's Jetson, which should be down here, right? So we support both Ori Nano and AGX. Also, if you want to learn more about high availability, for example, you could just go here in platform, high availability, and you have a lot of articles here explaining what you can do, how you can do it, why you shouldn't do it that way, and whatnot. Right, so it's everything in here. It's still loading, so I'll keep showing you a little bit more of the Academy. We also have an API. Everything that you saw can be done through an API. I mean, we usually say that we are API first, meaning that every single endpoint that the front end uses is available for our users to use if they want, right? And everything is documented here. So anything that could be done in the platform is in here, and you could just use it to access the platform programmatically. You could potentially integrate Barbara with your corporate solutions or with other applications, or just command it by using scripts, or I don't know, it's up to you really. But all the flexibility is there. I mean, we have customers who don't want to go into the GUI, so they do this using scripts, and that's fine. You can very easily do that. We also have examples, and we do provide support on how to use it. All right, let's see how it's going. So it's there, it's up and running. You can check things here. So I'm sure they will come up shortly. Yeah. Maybe not so shortly. There has to be a demo effect or something, right? Because otherwise it's not a demo. Let's give it some space. I'm sure it will come up. By the way, you will receive an email from us, I think tomorrow, probably tomorrow, including the recording of this webinar. And also we will include a link for you to create a trial account should you want to try Barbara and play around. Because you have access to the platform, because Ignition is available in the marketplace, and because you have the recording of the session, you could easily replicate what I've just done. So you could play around and deploy your own Ignition and check by yourself how easy it is to update it and to play around with it. And if you want to, I don't know, experiment a little bit further, you could just always go to Academy and browse around and navigate and see what else you could do with the platform. Nice. So the platform is now up and running. We could log in if we wanted to. So let's log in, and we're back in the home, in Ignition's home. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate the high availability functionality. So the idea here is I will make this application to float away from one node to the other by, sorry guys, wrong tab, by draining the node where it's running. Let me close this so you can see my whole screen. So we have here the Ignition running, and these two are empty. So I'm going to click into the drain button, and the idea is to simulate a node failure or a maintenance task, right? And see how the Ignition workload is going to float away onto a new node. So let's click on it. And this has gone red. We're going to see how there's a new bubble here. So now at this moment, Ignition has a step on node number 1, and the other step is on node number 3. Now it has disappeared from node number 1, so that instance has been shut down and is starting on node number 3. Node number 3 has a different IP, but I couldn't care less because, again, I can access it using the 200, which is just my floating IP. So as long as this is up and running, I should be able to access it through here. Same IP. You can see that the gateway is starting. If you wanted to check the logs, you could do that on the other. Just in here, let me move away so you could always follow what's happening. You could always search for things that are starting, for example. There's many things being started up. I would take some seconds, maybe a minute, but it should be running. And as you can see here, it has completely moved away from this node onto node number 3. Why number 3? Who knows? But that's not a problem. I mean, clusters self-organize and they know better than us. So in a moment this should be up. Let me check if there's something I wanted to tell you that I haven't. I don't think so, because I spoke about batches, APIs, marketplace. Yeah, that's there. So let's wait for it to come up and demonstrate that it has actually, started up and floated onto the new node. So the idea is that you have the same service that you had before. It has moved from one node to the other, but I mean, it hasn't been a problem for you. There will be a small downtime, as we're seeing, and this is why we call this soft high availability. For some users, this is good enough, 1-2 minutes of downtime. If you really want to go down to the second, you need hard high availability. We could use Ignition redundancy, which is the other flavor of Ignition, coupled with Barbara high availability, and that would allow you, that would give you the best of both worlds, really, and would allow you to have this hard high availability. We haven't shown it on the webinar because it's a little bit more complex, and we wanted the demo to be, as straightforward as possible, because we didn't have much time. And speaking of the time, I might be going over my time. So let's finalize. We have demonstrated that the Ignition instance is running on a new node, so the floating has been completed and everything's fine, right? So let's summarize this last bit by saying that High availability is going to give us an ignition instance or instances, if you are playing around with the redundant version, that are always on and are always reachable. This means continuous service availability, this means resiliency, and this means no interruptions of service, even if machines crash or I don't know, whatever happens to them, or you have to schedule maintenance for them. And obviously, this means reduce downtime costs, because there's some industries who can't afford a downtime, and you know that sometimes an hour of downtime means millions of money down the drain. And I think that's all from my side. What do you think, Travis?
Well, I think that demo is amazing. First off, this really demonstrates, I think, the key importance here, right? Like if we have hundreds or thousands of devices out there, managing them individually is a non-starter. We're not doing that, right? We have to leverage tools like this to be able to see everything and manage the whole stack, right? So we're talking about being able to patch the OS to all the containers to everything, and do that in an organized, automated way. That's huge. And like I said, the scale is just getting larger. So as that scale gets larger, we need tools like this to help do that. And I think it's really cool to demonstrate the high availability, because we can't, in a lot of cases, can't have two edge compute devices for as we introduce a lot of these, that the cost of having double licensing and double hardware is very difficult. But if we could strategically place edge compute devices around the plant floor, we can then leverage them to the max, right, to be able to kind of balance those workloads and deploy new workloads as we need it going forward. And that's the thing, is you never know what you're going to need tomorrow. You might be ignition SCADA right now, but you need to then deploy a new tool. Maybe you're doing some AI that you're deploying there. You can just send a new workload out from centrally, and have all that configured. So it's very exciting to see that. For all of you guys, I think all of this can, as Alex said, can certainly be tested out. You can get a free trial of Barbara. You can get a free trial of Ignition with all that, and and put this to the test and see what it looks like. Especially when you couple this with Ignition 8.3, you could deploy it really with any kind of configuration you want preloaded, as well as it just makes the process very simple. So my big call to action is go play with it. See how this can really change the landscape within your OT arena, and also bring your IT teams in to help with these efforts, because you don't have to be alone.
Well, thank you so much. We have plenty of questions. This is the Q&A moment. We have over 9 questions here, and we've been answering some of them too.
Choose the easy ones, Miren.
I think I'm gonna just read them all. Yeah.
All right.
I think our audience deserve that. This is the question from Matthias. Can you also make module configurations via the Barbara platform? For example, configuring an MQTT distributor to only use MQTTs and configure certificates?
Yeah, so this is now easily possible with Ignition 8.3, and that all the configuration is in the file system. So they're just JSON files. So basically, as we deploy the container, we can add config to that, and that could be configuration for your MQTT server to the distributor module. Certificates that are loaded within that can all be part of the bundle that you then load down to an edge device. One thing that's important to note with this is that our standard container image for Ignition does not include the MQTT modules by default. We are working on that with Cirrus Link, but it is possible for you to easily build your own image that includes those, and we have examples for that you can then have in your Barbara panel to then load down to the different devices that are out there. So you certainly can do all that.
Okay. This is another one from Matthias. What will be the benefit of performing an Ignition deployment via Barbara instead of via Helm charts, for example? That's another question.
Well, for once, the experience is going to be easier to manage. Also, the good thing about Barbara is that you have the marketplace. So most of the things that you need apart from Ignition and including Ignition. They're just there. I mean, we have a marketplace with 150 plus applications. It has been built based on customer needs. So every time a customer approaches us saying, hey, it'd be nice if I could deploy this, we say, all right, give me a week or a couple of weeks. Let me see what I can do. And we try to push those applications to become mainstream in terms of being available in the marketplace. So if you want to deploy something easily and very, very fast, the platform is just, click, 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 and you're there. Obviously, in the end, the functionality that you get in the chart is the same. The Helm chart is basically the same, right? But I would say it's all about customer experience, user experience, and also adapted to OT people, because let's not forget that the people trying to digitalize, these are guys who are used to PLCs, to SCADAs, to that type of tool. They're not used to CLI or scripts or black screens in general. So for them, it gives them confidence if they can just do that by clicking away in an easy to use interface.
Thank you. Very, very clear. This is for Travis. When installing Ignition on an edge device, is it deployed inside a container? And if so, how does the Ignition license activation process work when it's running inside a Docker container? Does it need continuous access to the Inductive Automation license server?
Yeah, so the example that we shared here today is deploying Ignition as a container. So when it's in a container, our traditional license that we have, that we've had, will not work in that environment because there's no hardware that's tied down to, right? It can move anywhere as a container. So we have a new licensing mechanism that's called an 8-character license key that does have to continuously hit our activation server. And there's configurable rates for how that works. It doesn't have to have direct internet access. It can actually go through our gateway network, meaning that we can have a controller that is like the proxy to get to the licensing server. But this is the way that we can maintain the license running in a Docker environment there, or in a container environment there. So that 8-character key would have to be used here. And you could talk to us if you have, if you want to dive into details or questions around that, we can share some more information.
Thank you. Alex, this is for you. Does Barbara schedule or roll out upgrades across nodes when dealing with many nodes?
That's not a functionality that we have in production now, but it's a functionality that we are implementing at the moment, actually.
Oh.
So the short answer is no, yet. But yes, the idea is that batches at the moment, you have to make them on one go, right? You could always do several batches, but we're implementing a functionality where you could make a rollout. So you could potentially do the first 2, see what happens, then add 2 more, see what happens, and so on and so forth. With that functionality, we're also adding the possibility to schedule updates and to even if it's firmware updates, you can also do the download of the update in advance and then schedule the part where you actually install it. So that's coming. It will be shortly in the platform. In any case, it can be done now through the API. I mean, we have users who actually take care of massive operations using the API. So yes and no, but it will be around in a couple of months probably.
Thank you. I see that one can manage hardware nodes. Can you manage cloud nodes, like if the instance is on AWS or Azure?
For who's that question?
Any of you guys?
Well, I think that question is for Barbara, for the
Yeah, I
OS.
think so.
We can manage nodes anywhere. We're actually putting forward a new functionality that we call hosted nodes, that are nodes that are basically cloud virtual machines. So because we can run on virtual machines, you can have your virtual machines wherever you want, right? So you could potentially have a virtual machine on AWS or on Azure, and as long as you install Barbara Core there, then it becomes under the control of Barbara. And you could do anything that you've seen today through the platform onto that node. We're going a step forward and we are adding hosted nodes to the platform, so you don't have to take all the you know how to take care of actually creating the virtual machine on Azure or AWS, we will host that for you. So with a couple of clicks again, you will be able to have a virtual machine in the cloud for you to test the platform and prototype.
Thank you. It's another one probably for you, Alex. Some customers have closed environments. They normally have tight security roles.
Yeah.
Do you have roles for Barbara connecting to the hardware in the plant?
Yeah, of course. We have role-based access. We have 4 roles. We have from the admin to the viewer. I mean, the viewer is quite limited. They can only see things. Then we have editor, supervisor, and admin, right? So, and all the functionalities, there's things that some can do, some others can't. For example, batches, which is a dangerous functionality. You need to be supervisor to sign the batch up. So an editor can create a batch, but he or she can't send it. There needs a supervisor to come in and say, hey, this is validated by me. So there's always this set of roles and access control. So we ensure that, you know, the most powerful functionalities are not handled by the, you know, least, let's say, the people with least privileges.
Thank you. We have 3 more questions. They're just coming in. Can high availability configure as hot standby?
It can be, yeah. The question is yes. I mean, high availability is very, very powerful. We use Docker Swarm underneath. Docker Swarm is quite powerful, and we basically use anything that can be done with Docker Swarm. So you could, I don't know, you could send as many replicas as you want. You could do replicate, you could do global, you could do jobs. So yeah, short answer is yes.
From our side, though, Alex, it could be a little bit tricky if you have, you know, the ignition containers both running, right? In that, yeah, you have a shared config environment, but if they're both running, one would have to be not doing any workloads, and there's no support for that currently to have that one up connected to the same config, but not actually running. That's what a redundancy does. Redundancy knows that you have a master and a backup. The backup is waiting because it's waiting for the master to go away, and then it takes over. So it's a little bit more tricky. And there was another question below about using redundancy with the fault tolerance or the high availability you showed, which you absolutely can combine the two. That is the power that is there. But I think hot standby would be pretty difficult without some changes from our side. While it certainly can be done from the the actual cluster itself, I don't think it would be easy with ignition.
Okay, well, we answered that second question. This is for you, Alex, for Marcus. From a user perspective, how will you name these wonderful use cases, and in which verticals could they used most?
So repeat the first part. I didn't get it.
Okay, he says, from a user perspective, how will you name these wonderful use cases, and in which verticals could they be used?
Well, the use cases are quite horizontal. We see data collection and SCADA. I mean, you find that everywhere really. So there's no like I couldn't pinpoint a vertical, to be honest. Obviously, the more critical your operation is, the more you're gonna be looking for redundancies and high availabilities and all that, right? So it depends strongly on what you're using the platform for and the type of business you're in, right? But the short answer is this is quite horizontal. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know, Travis, if you want to extend a bit more or expand on the how can ignition redundancy and node fault control be combined? You did answer that previously, but if you want to expand a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, essentially you have, in our redundancy, you have 2 nodes, right? You have a master and a backup. So that's 2 different containers that be running. They're going to talk to each other to know, if who is active and who is not within that cluster. And so you have a cluster of, let's say you have a cluster of 3 edge compute devices. Well, you're going to have the master running on one node, the backup running on a separate node, and you can make sure that they're going to run on different nodes. You don't want them on the same one. And so that then if we were to get rid of one of those nodes, then, at that point, the workload would move over and we'd still have that pair. But during that transition, one of the master will stay active or the backup would take over, and so you don't have that waiting time that you were seeing for that node to come all the way up from scratch. So that's how that works. Obviously, though, you still need to have 2 licenses from us, right? From Inductive, you have their master and backup. So there's still additional costs for that, but that's for really mission critical systems where you want best of everything, right? You want redundancy and you want some tolerance around, what if you had a disaster in the plant floor and you had 2 nodes go down, or something like that. You want to be able to change that workload somewhere else. So that's how you can protect against it.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
to add on to what Travis said. The ignition redundancy version that we have, that's what he says. But we have added on top of that reverse proxy that ensures that whenever you attack the cluster using the virtual IP, you're going to be redirected to the right place. So if it's the primary, the one that's actually giving the service, then you will be redirected to the primary. If the redundancy has taken over, you will be redirected to the redundancy, right? So there's always this, pair between the platform and the application that helps give the overall. And that was one option for the demo today, but it was kind of complex to demonstrate, so we stuck to the basic one. But that can be done. And it's quite powerful.
And the final question is from Esteban Nunez. I think, Travis, you know him because he's actually sending regards to you from NVTech. He is asking, have you thought of orchestration for perspective or vision clients? That's his question.
Yeah, so that question is around when we have a large architecture, a large system. Often, what we do is we split out our backend, so our I/O connecting to PLCs separate from the front end, the application side. So perspective is our native HTML visualization, and so I could have technically 10 servers or 10 containers running perspective of the project, getting data from the backend and from the database that then I can support more people accessing the data at the same time, the application at the same time. So what this would be is basically Barbara is going to manage all of the workloads. We would also deploy a load balancer workload that would be able to be in front of all of those perspective application servers. Again, with the virtual IPs and whatnot, doesn't matter where they go. That load balancer would be able, that would be your main thing to go to. But you would be able to, we'd be able to have all of those servers behind it. So we'd basically kind of think of that as one thing that we're deploying, out to these devices.
But thank you so much to all. It's past 6 p.m. I just want to thank you to Travis and Alex for such a wonderful presentation. I think it's been very, very insightful. And as Alex mentioned, if we like to explore Barbara in depth, we offer a 3-day free trial of the platform. Keep an eye on your inbox because we will be sending you the link to get started very shortly. And we thank you all. Have a great day, and we hope to see you in our next Talk to the Expert session. Thank you so much, Travis. Thank you, Alex. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.
For now. Bye-bye. Take care.